Welcome to today's webinar. We've got about 90 people joining us from all over the globe, so we're set to be a very interesting session. Today's webinar is the first in a campaign of activity that we're running throughout the course of the year, which is closely linked to the pharmaceutical, life sciences and biopharma sector. So we're on a journey really to raise awareness of project management in these sectors. So it's there's a lot on the horizon for the course of the year. As it says there, I'm Gavin Spencer and I'm from APM. And before I introduce our speaker, I'm literally just going to take 2 minutes of your time just to tell you a little bit about APM and some of the exciting things we've got on the horizon for the year ahead. So the Association of Project Management, founded in 1972. And for those of you who are quick with your numbers, you'll realise that this year is our 50th anniversary. So we've got a whole calendar of activity that's on the horizon for the year ahead, where we'll be focusing on some of those successful projects that we've seen over the course of the last 50 years. We're based in beautiful Princess Risborough in Buckinghamshire. And as it says there, we're the only chartered body representing the project profession in the world. So in the world, sound like Jeremy Clarkson. We received our Royal Charter in 2017, which we're hugely proud of. And as it says on the screen there, we're really positioning Chartered Project Professional as the global standard for project management. So an ongoing drive of ours there. And as far as the wider vision and ambition goes, our strapline really is that we want to build a world in which all projects succeed, with project management being as a life skill for all. For those of you who like your stats, I think the ones on the screen there are pretty self-explanatory, but just to very quickly run through those. So we've got over 35,000 individual members, which is an incredible number. There's over 500 corporate partners, and they consist of businesses really who from all kinds of different sectors, as you can imagine, construction and education being some of the predominant ones, but we do have a wide range of sectors who are part of membership and take advantage of the benefits that come as a part of APM's offering. We've seen over 2,000 individuals who've become chartered project professionals to date, and we see that number growing. And on an annual basis, we award around about 18,000 qualifications and standards, which are really designed for everybody, from regardless of what stage of their project management career they're at, regardless if it's entry level or a very experienced project professional. And then the last two numbers there, we run over 200 or so CPD events a year, and they could range from webinars much like this, business roundtables, specific interest groups, as well as your large-scale awards and conferences. And then lastly, we work with over 500 volunteers across the UK. I won't go into too much detail about all of the ways that you can use membership, and I know that many of you on the call here on the webinar today are members and are very engaged, but that details some of the ways that you can get involved. And we're delighted that membership has continued to grow, especially in the current climate, and we've got a range of different companies who are engaged with us in those sectors. If obviously you want to learn more about APM and you're not a member, we would be very happy to have a conversation with you about that in the future. And my last slide, just a snapshot of some of our members there. And as you'll see, they're obviously from a range of different sectors. So just a bit of housekeeping. Today's event's been recorded, so what we'll do is then post up details on our channels afterwards, so people can draw reference to it. As I mentioned earlier, if you've got a microphone, just switch that off for us, please. And our guest speaker today is Sophie Newbold. She's from Innovate Law, and she's set to deliver a presentation. It'll be about 25 to 30 minutes, which is titled "The Top 10 Practical Tips to Enhance Pharmaceutical Project Management Capability Using Data, Digital and Tech Solutions." So we'll hand over to Sophie very shortly. There'll be a chance for you guys to ask any questions. So if you want to ask a question as the presentation moves forward, please use the chat box, and then we'll allocate some time at the end of the presentation, and we can obviously run through that. After the Q&A, we've then got a very interesting session, which is going to involve some breakout rooms, which is being led by our friends at PIPMD, and then we'll then reconvene for a very brief feedback and an event wrap up. So if I may hand over to our good friend and partner, Jeanette Thomas from PIPMD, who's going to move forward with today's proceedings. Jeanette, hopefully you're there.
Yeah, can you see me? I'm here. Thank you very much for everybody attending this meeting. And can you show me the next slide, please, Gavin?
Yes, absolutely. There we go.
So just a quick introduction about PIPMD. We've been around for 30 years, and we were set up by project managers in the pharmaceutical industry who wanted to share their experience. And that is what we like to continue to do. And so we have now become a not-for-profit organisation, but we are still very much volunteer-led. We usually, pre-COVID, have 2 flagship events each year where we all meet and have engaging speakers and update ourselves on the latest innovations and training and technical information about project management in the pharmaceutical industry. In replacement of that, we are hosting more webinars, online events, and we have updated our website. So we put all our information on a knowledge centre where past events, all the details about past events and recordings are on our knowledge centre. And we also recognise people want more training in pharmaceutical project management. And so we have now set up some training modules. And Gavin, if you could show me the next slide. We have 2 course sets. One is for advanced skills in project management, and the other is courses on developer project management. So people wanting to get more into project management or develop some skill sets within project management for the pharmaceutical industry. So it aligns very much with the APM interests. And we align that development program as well with the APM examination process, so people could do our training in addition to the APM work. The next slide, please, Gavin. Okay, so the more detail is we have our next advanced workshop course on risk management in February. So look at our website for that. And we have a number of modules here for the e-learning and live sessions for the development skills program. So just take a look at our website if you'd like to know more about our training. And so that's just a quick introduction to PIPMD. And please, I'll let you hand over to Sophie now, Gavin, and then we'll come back to the workshop after Sophie's talk.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jeanette. And yes, hopefully we have Sophie Newbold who's with us. I can certainly see that she's in our attendee list. Sophie, can you hear us?
Yes, loud and clear. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'll see if I can pass you control, Sophie. But thank you for joining us.
Lovely. So I will, we have to make the best use of time. And I was delighted to be approached by the Association of Project Management working in partnership with PIPMD, be introduced to Jeanette and John to have this opportunity to really learn about my experience really with using data, digital and technology advancements, if you like, in the market to help me with my role as a commercial / procurement disputes lawyer in technology projects. So just a bit about me. I come from a science background, which I think is really interesting, and it's just brought having this conversation with scientific-minded industry professionals has really triggered something in me that I originally wanted to become a lawyer in pharmaceuticals, actually, which is quite interesting. Anyway, so in a roundabout way, I actually fell accidentally into a PFI team with a construction engineering department with Mott MacDonald back in 1999, 2000, and that triggered my sort of desire to become do law, but with a much more projects focus. And actually, it was quite difficult to become a sort of a corporate projects lawyer. Actually, I found. So anyway, in a roundabout way, ended up becoming a sort of a business lawyer on a sort of an Essex High Street. But that gave me really hands-on commercial experience, really getting into the T's and C's, and helping technology startups on the High Street, which then absolutely elevated me after running a sort of my own business for a short while whilst having children. I then ended up being a technology projects lawyer with Essex County Council because I'd adopted some knowledge of commercial contracts with technology startups in and around local Essex. So all of this has created a lovely foundation for a healthy relationship with bigger projects. And I've been actually helping authorities procure the likes of one of the big law firms was instructed to help the Met Office buy the supercomputer. And that was really probably the biggest data type solution that I have ever worked with. And that was really interesting because all the benefits was around the data that was going to be collected amongst that infrastructure. Along the way, however, as a professional, I've struggled with the fact that I'm still stuck in the dark ages without the ability really to print anything off. So, having worked with big files, big contracts, big documents, the ability to search those documents and get hold of the single source of truth has been a bit of a holy grail for me. And along my way, I have built my own company and providing enhancement. My new slogan now is for Innovate Law is performance evolution. And that's how I feel. If you can use data, digital and technology in the right way, it should be enhancing our performance. And this is an evolutionary process. I'll just check I've got control now. Sorry, Gavin, have I got control?
I think I may have to advance the slides for you.
No problem.
Just give me the nod.
Right. So anyway, I think you'll get hold of the slides. So I won't take you through my entire CV, but just to say this talk really, when I asked John and Jeanette what would be the most suitable approach to this talk, this workshop for project managers, it was clear we really do need to just get down to basics as to what is it the requirements of a project manager. And if you could go to the next slide, please, Gavin. Or is it? Sorry, yeah. Oh, okay. So sorry, this is just the kind of the overview. We can go to the next slide. So going back to basics, so this is the approach that I've taken to help try and articulate what a data solution looks like from my professional point of view in terms of supporting organisations. So the skills that my profession brings to an organisation is risk assurance, security standards, safety around technology, ability to enhance processes, to advance competitive advantage, etc. in the marketplace, identifying the opportunities, so some sort of data strategy to identify, why one is collecting data, because we're getting organisations collecting lots and lots of data, but they actually haven't got the ability to interpret it, use it, commercialise it, which then becomes a redundant piece of a huge investment actually. And then authority leadership, companies and brands using that leadership, developing the research and development around why they're collecting data, what they're using it for, how they're improving their products and services, etc. And then actually then going out to the market as a leader in a particular in an area. Now and then the know your obligations for me as a projects lawyer comes down to things like risk and also project delivery success. I've worked on projects where the legal risk actually has evolved due to things like capability, capacity, lack of planning, decision making not being clear, you know, it's actually the human element actually creates a lot of the risk. So how can we tap into data, digital technology in a strategy that really supports the professionals on a project to really reduce the unnecessary, really foreseeable and repeatable risks that are common, is as a sort of a low-hanging fruit. If we could just go to the next slide, please. So just, I mean, these are case studies. Innovate Law is a pretty brand new company, but these are the case studies, if you like, of where I have, as a professional, been in those organisations or environments or initiatives, and really pushed for automation to reduce spend, whether that's spend on a bigger team of consultancy or lawyers, to enhance accuracy, to get more accurate results, to collect data. So, you know, I've tried to keep this as high level as possible, but, you know, this has been really hard journey for me. This is not easy. And I've had to take risks along the way. I've been conflicted out of roles along the way. This really has not been an easy exercise for me. But I honestly believe it's been paying off, and, you know, to have this conversation with the project management profession, and to have so many people interested in what I've been doing and how it can work and how it's evolving. So, you know, I think I can offer services now that can compete with a large set of human resource. And I know that sounds awful, but actually, you know, these are projects with budgets. When risks, challenges, reviews, you know, these kind of big ticket pieces of work come up, these are normally unplanned or unwanted, and also they create a lot of delay, you know, especially project managers, hopefully not as much as lawyers, but, you know, lawyers are a real bottleneck when it comes to moving a project forward, and that shouldn't be the case. You know, we should be able to turn around services like any performance KPI type thing. That's where I'm going with Innovate Law. You know, give us a review and we can turn it around in, you know, X number of hours, because we've automated the majority of the work, and then you can top and tail it with the human, you know, the human element, the human intelligence on top. And working with technology people, it really helps me understand why they do what they do has been a really important part of my journey. They're not there to take jobs away. You know, the automation is to take the mundane, the work that kills us as human beings, because it's overwhelmingly too big. It's got to get done, so there's a huge demand on that person or team. It's dead boring. You know, the chances are there's going to be a lot of error margin, because we simply can't do what a computer can do in certain situations. So it's getting the balance right. Just like a bike makes us faster, you know, identify the right technology to get the right results, and get the best outcomes for the project. These cases here, so Gambling Commission retendering the 3rd national lottery licence to the 4th national lottery licence, big review there of incumbent contract solution using automation, fantastic. Commonwealth, Brexit, you know, there was contracts all around the world with the different embassies. We had to really go deep, and it seemed automation was the obvious way forward for that work. Ministry of Justice is where my journey really started, because I was advising on a couple of big prime disputes, and you know, these contracts are well over 500 pages plus 1,000 pages, plus you've got a number of these big 1,000-page contracts, all dependent on each other, within each other. You know, this is big deal stuff, and to be able to go into a negotiation, knowing what you're talking about, having had probably 24 hours maximum prep. I mean, it's the reality of grabbing that information as quickly as Google across a suite of documentation would have helped a lot. And plus, I found on some of these projects that actually project teams like testing, delivery, they were so siloed that they didn't actually know what the roles were or the procedures that were already laid out in the contract. Contract was in the drawer, contract, and I'm talking generally here, but this is a repeat scenario that got me frustrated to say, hang on, I can advise you on this risk for this dispute in this negotiation, but I can see a fire burning right over there that no one's, we'll worry about that when that problem arises. This is not the way we should be running big projects. We can do this much better. And adult social care, a real gap between contract performance against legislation in terms of drop down of duty of care obligations. We can use technology to identify those gaps, get suppliers to start feeding back data to make sure that frontline services is actually executing the delivery of the duties on the authorities. And then with the Race to Zero, it's all about sustainability, all these obligations that are in law or across supplier codes of conduct and things like that, matching up what we're saying we want the suppliers to do with actually performance, and again, collection of data, opportunities there. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so I mean, this slide here is kind of signals of the types of problems that are common to big large contracts, possibly even organizations. I'm not going to go through them, we just haven't got time, but hopefully you've got the slide deck at some point, and these should be familiar, I'd imagine, to most of you. And if anyone has any questions on these, because you've got sight of them at the end, please do raise them. Sorry, so the problem and the solution I'm not really going to go into, because in a way that's in what Innovate Law does. What I want to do is get to these practical tips. So if we can go down, please, to the next slide. Yep, to the next slide. So that's, yeah. So this is really kind of just, if you can click, yeah. So in terms of features and functions, so I've touched on some of the problems and some of the solutions in what I've just said in terms of the case studies and the difficulty of the journey of me as a professional trying to get what I need to do my job better. I mean, these 6 steps really are just to kind of give people a kind of an understanding of what we're talking about here. So obviously you've got to implement, number 1, the highest standards of information and platform security, etc. Number 2, it's formatting data, because data, we all know, comes in all different shapes, sizes, types, kinds. So for a language to talk through all that data, it's important that it all sits in a way that is all searchable and readable, and the codes behind it work. So the conversion into structured data has been a really interesting journey for me. So to get unstructured data, i.e. paper files, legacy contracts that just you would never find the digital file for, but there's something in the cupboard that roughly tells you what that contract does and how it's changed a bit, that type of thing. But to turn that into a format that is readable by code and algorithm has made it unbelievably more successful to understand and also then identify the risk gaps to your project, etc. Number 3, obviously trying to find real-time reporting. So this is a common theme where you have a commercial director or whatever, how long is it going to take to manage exit on part X of the contract? Well, on an 1,000 page or whatever plus contract, which is a lot of it is the solution, i.e. provided by the supplier or the partners involved, to actually deliver that report, that executive report, takes a lot of resource, a lot of time, and is probably quite expensive. We can do this through automation to actually get you a starter for 10 in real time. So, and that transforms the game, because any person that is a non-legal or contract or whatever, anyone working on that project has a document that can give them an efficient summary of the type of theme that it is they're looking at. And it's kind of like Control F, but on steroids, because you're not just going through one document. These are all the documents that make up what it is you're looking for as a big project, for example, or what have you. This sounds all very kind of maybe not so wow, but believe you me, it has transformed the way I practice. One contract, I had to give a report on how devices interact into a connectivity contract that was, you know, over 1,000 pages. It took me 3 weeks to write that report, and I'll be honest with you, I still wasn't happy with it. But if I could have got all the devices, you know, the sort of the result in my hands to start with as an exec summary, because I know that the computer had grabbed everything that I needed to look at, then I'm looking at probably less than 2% of the paperwork that I needed to read through is now in my hands, and now I can write a report. It just makes a complete difference in terms of delivery and quality. This is really important. Number 4, customer-centric, fit-for-purpose obligations. So making sure that whatever it is you're building for you as the user of the product, or what it is you need, is really spelt out and understood by the provider that's helping you come up with your technology suite to help you improve your performance evolution. So much technology. The story I love is a cameraman that helped me on a video. He sat in an NHS supplier engagement with all the technology companies sitting there, an hour and a half, what have you, of engagement, and he was filming. You know, no clue on the NHS, no clue on technology, just filming. And he said this whole room was packed with technology providers, and by the end of it, the NHS lady at the front of the chair, she said, "It was very nice to meet you all," stood up, but she said, "Not one of you mentioned patient." And that, for me, is one of those power stories that I will stick with for the rest of my life, because if you've forgotten what the point is of the engagement, of the purpose of the tech, of the whatever, we've all lost the plot, right? So for you as the project managers, you know, what is it that is going to help you with your job? And if you can't spell that out, no one else is going to know. And that's been one of my hardest journeys, is to explain what me as a lawyer does with documents. It's a really hard process, and I need to have special coaching to actually get out the step-by-step process I take, so that a digital competitor can do what I do to help me with my job. Number 5, okay, so that's just tracking obligations going down the chain. And then it's about number 6 is the collection of the data coming back up. So whatever you're doing, who's delivering, that data has to be coming to a center point. Okay, so we're going to be running out of time now. So let's move into the practical. That's just to give you a visual of the kind of the idea of how an organization should and could be running by enabling its people. We can go to the next slide, please. So tip 1, okay, so we're on the practical tips. I'll try and do one a minute or something. Good requirement specification. Define your role requirements for the project correctly. Now, any of you that have worked on a technology procurement or a digital data procurement, I can't stress how difficult this process actually is. And when if you as a project manager can identify what is it I do in my role that could be actually automated, then that's where the trick is, because that's where we can then focus on how the technology is designed around you to enable you. And also, you'll see with the other tips, work with the other people in your team or across the project or what have you. If we just keep using the products that are on the market and never quite getting what we need to do our roles, nothing will ever change. But then there are these challenges and barriers of actually, putting investment into development is a big ask. It's a big deal. And one of the big things is finding the right channel the right governance for these business cases to come forward and go through. Now, in my experience, I never had the governance, I never had the support, and I never had the budget. So I've gone about this completely my own way by absolutely embedding myself into the technology world and making some really, really good friends who are now business colleagues. But, you know, this has not been, as I say, an easy ride. But here I've got you some relevant skills to get you through the phases. So, you know, again, you're probably extremely familiar with these kind of phases of discovery and research and capability analysis, capacity, market engagement, but actually sit down and do it for yourself. It's a really, really difficult exercise, but the most important for us to even move on to the next level. Tip 2, please, Gavin. Tip 2, right? So it's developing the business case around what it is you're trying to achieve. So for me, you know, searching big, heavy, thick, multiple documents and being able to kind of get the answers into one document in real time as a starter for 10, and reducing all the amount of reading that I would have otherwise done, because I wouldn't have known that that wasn't applicable had I not read it. For the computer to do that for me makes my life just so much quicker and faster that, you know I can save the client 70% legal costs on that job. Okay, in a way, that's what you guys have got to do for yourselves, the project management role. What is the benefit for your budget holder, for your governance model to take this through? So if you're employed by an organization, then it could well be that you need a conversation with your technology office, your CTO, his team, to say, look, you know, we've never been part of the technology roadmap for this organization because we didn't realize that we needed to be. But actually, we're hearing noises from the legal profession, and maybe we should look into this, because maybe some technology might help us improve our access to data, ensure we're all working from the single source of truth. There are plenty of contract management tools and everything out there, but how do you know you're buying the right one? Everyone is so different, and everything demands a different level of technical capability. So maybe a very user-friendly solution isn't actually good for your project, whereas something a bit more technically demanding is going to absolutely smash your project, but not everyone can use it. So it's all developing an idea of what the business case is, what are the skills that you need to match the tech, what's the tech trying to do, you know, and if we think of it as data is the end point, because all the organizations that we think of at the moment, you know, Facebook, YouTube, these types of platforms, yes, they're selling out videos, social media and everything. Fundamentally, they are data companies. And for pharmaceutical companies not to be operating in a similar way, like any organization now, I think is going to be out of date. I think the future of all companies will be absolutely data driven. Project management absolutely should be aligned with that. You know, everything that's been how you run your platforms, of how you do things, etc. You know, that data bank should be there to be able to tell whoever needs to know from a security point of view exactly what's going on. So this business case commercial model slide, there's quite a lot in there, but again, it goes down to evaluation. You know, do you know what it is you're buying? Have you set out your requirements under tip 1? And now can you assess how your business case is going to be met through selection of whoever your tech support, your development support, what have you, for finding those efficiencies and advantages, those benefits, you know, making sure that you are getting the best partner, solution, what have you, for your role or your project, however you're buying, or organization. Tip 3, please. Risk management. Oh, yeah. So risk management. So obviously, kind of, these will all be familiar to you all, but actually you've then got to apply this probably to you and your investment. You know, nobody's got a lot of time, nobody's got, you know, money's, you know, being spent left, right and centre. So where we channel these resources, these investments, are going to have to be managed through these channels to make sure, you know, you're not wasting money and time on the wrong product, the wrong development. I mean, there's just so much development going on left, right and centre in legal technology. And again, a bit like pharmaceutical products, I just think only 1 in 200 are going to make it to the fly, 1 in 250. Now, I'm sorry, if I'm going to be in that game, I don't want to be the 249 that never made it. It's got to be the one that made it. And how do you make that assessment? Well, you understand what's going on in the market, and you have to, you know, we back and invest what is actually going to work for us. And if everybody is going to be designing and developing their own things, that for me is going to be chaos and disaster. And that's what I'm looking at in the legal market at the moment. Everyone's on the bandwagon to be the next unicorn and all this. I mean, I'm sorry, it just doesn't work like that. The risk is huge. So the risk management, risk mitigation is so important. Okay, tip 4. So this is to do with you as individuals, like myself. You know, I've got a responsibility to develop myself professionally, do the right courses, you know, do the right exams. And now this kind of idea of having, you know, our phone has become our third arm. We can have 4th arms, we can have 5th arms. Do you know what I mean? We can have, there's so much out there to help us become a better professional. So the demands of what makes us a better professional, how do we even start to go about which is the best course, which is the best provider, which is the, you know, this is a big conversation, I'll be honest with you, because it's a new part of this digital 4th revolution, industrial revolution, this digital revolution, you know, as exciting as it is. And, you know, I reminded the colleagues when we were prepared for this session, you know, APM did a fantastic the Future of Projects program literally a couple of years ago when I first started talking about using data in projects. And we're in that. We're in the future of projects, that is today. So why, if you scrutinize, and I'm thinking more sort of infrastructure, why have we so much waste? And in a world of sustainable development and social value and etc., we have the technology, we have the data capability, we have all of this, the skills, the capacity, the capability, the hunger, the competition, and we have so much waste. So professional development needs, you know, delivering efficiently on time, keeping up to date with bleeding edge emerging technologies that are applicable to one's role or the project or the organization. I think it has now become part of professional obligations, I'll be honest with you. So those are just a few messages in that slide of where I've come from with my performance evolution. Tip 5, please. Understanding the industry and understanding the business development needs. So now moving away from us as individual professionals into the actual development of the business that you're in, and then the wider industry you're in. So looking at pharmaceuticals, you know, hearing the challenges that you have got in terms of possibly waste and you know, what the chances are of the products that are going through your projects getting to market, and that you know, quite extreme scrutiny, accountability, you know. And if something goes wrong, I mean, I don't know how that, maybe that's just, you know, that's just part of the occupational hazard of you know, that's all built-in risk. But you know, if things can change, and project management is the industry that leads that through the better use of data, better use of intelligence, better use of digital, etc. then my gosh, you're going to stand out like a sore thumb as real authority leadership participants to steer the pharmaceutical industry out of something that looked like a dark hole, looked like it was getting becoming a beast that was becoming unmanageable. Suddenly, because we've gone back to basics on ourselves, reflected on our skills, what we can bring to the table, you know, maybe we can steer out of some of this waste and offer something that we never thought we could offer before. But actually, it naturally comes in because we've now enabled our capability, our performance, because we are making the most of technologies that may not have been able to have touched us before, because we were relying on a central technology department that, quite frankly, never had our skill set, our demands at their, as a customer-centric part of their business plan, of their roadmap for the organisation. And this is it's taken me the penny to drop on that has been quite a fundamental penny for me. Nobody's been writing the lawyers' technology roadmap for their organisation. I'll be honest, nobody even gives us stuff. So I've had to go out there and find it myself. And I think, you know, this is the sharing and the learning of this talk, really. So if we go to the next tip, please. This is the, obviously this is something that should be part of project management and organisations anyway. But what I find with the strategy for data, the benefits that come out of data, and the collaboration around making sure that data is moved, being identified, collected, stored, processed, categorized, utilized, archived. As I said, at the moment, organizations are pumping a lot of money into collecting data, but they have got no strategy on how to use it. To have a strategy to use it and to have this collaboration effort around it and understand it so that you're actually moving forward, the organization industry is moving forward. I mean, if more of those products were making it to market, then maybe more people would be healed of their disease, for example. You know, that's just an incredible benefit for the you know, the investment case, the business case. So when we have ISO 47001 digitally inbuilt into our job, as in, you know, for law, we've got practice management, we've got client care standards, we've got solicitors regulation authority. I mean, I'm surrounded by regulation, reporting, blah, blah, you know, verification of identification. I mean, it's just constant risk, money laundering, etc. In a way, you know, the collaboration point isn't far off, because if people are behaving, reporting, understanding the gaps, the issues, and these are all being communicated properly in a really easy, good way. And, you know, Teams is brilliant. You know, the world is using Teams and it has transformed the way we work. There's no doubt about it. But there's these other data sets, other more complex and voluminous areas that we've got to start thinking about. How do we actually use tech to support those demands? Tip 7, sorry, I'm probably going over time now. How are we looking?
Yeah, I think we're on track. So okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Right, so tip 7 is yeah, I mean, it ties in with tip 1, as I say there. It's the role-specific focus. So moving away from professional development, which is very important, but going again back to customer centricity, as in you are the customer. You need to identify what does, and this is raising the standard. Not just what do you do and what can you do better. What does your role look like as a high performing on top of your game project manager? And, you know, this responsible, accountable consulted, informed matrix, how you use the information you've got on that project to help those on your team and lead that team to success. Again, just this does feed into the customer-centric description of the types of activities you do that then will help others understand how can we shave time there, improve accuracy there, collect a ton of data there that we never even thought about, or if we had access to that data, other data, how would that improve our performance on this project, for example? So it's a real, you know, these are workshops in themselves, I think. Tip 8, please. Yeah, so this is really important, as you know, as project managers, but again, even using technology, like it's dawned on me now, you know, years into my profession, that people don't understand us. You know, lawyers understand lawyers, really good assistants, PAs and that, they understand lawyers, but and so reflecting this onto your roles as project managers, like I'm not a project manager, you know, I can't stand doing planning, I'll be honest with you. I know it's important, but please don't give me a planning graph to put together, or you know, organizing big teams and getting things together and making sure we're meeting milestones and deadlines. Yes, that is part of my job as a lawyer to some extent, but you know, I understand, you know, it's very important to understand what everyone is bringing to the table, their different skills, what the value is that they're bringing to the team, and making sure you've got a technology, data, digital infrastructure around you that really supports all those skills. And I go back to the fact that we're all working on the same technology. For me, that's a bit like, you know, we could get used to it, but this could actually be absolutely, hello, this could be suppressing some of the skills that we've got, right, and the capabilities we've got because of the technology. The technology can limit what we can do as a human. This is wrong. We should be using technology to enhance what we can do as a human. So and to do that, we need to understand what all the different roles and team players bring to the table. So important. Tip 9. Hello? Sorry, I can't change it. Tip 9.
Has it not come up?
No,
it's on my screen.
Oh, sorry, I'm stuck on 8 at the moment.
It's unusual. Yeah, it's showing as 9 on mine.
Okay. I don't
Tip
know
9
about other people.
Tip 9 is on screen. Yeah, thanks.
Oh, okay.
Thank
Not on
you.
mine, but that's okay. Oh, there we go for me. Thank you. Right. So now this is just sinking right into what this is all about. This talk, but you know, when you're collecting, utilizing data, you know, and assembling that, you know, we think of data as numbers, numerical. Information is taking that data and turning it into something useful for people to be able to understand, to utilize. And then as you understand that information, you're then gaining knowledge. And from that knowledge, you will be getting intellectual property. So, you know, the importance of data as the foundation of intellectual property is huge. So this idea of a data bank, I just think if it's not already there in the industry, what a fantastic way for the project management profession to really bring something of value to those organizations. And the only way they can get that information, that data, is by making sure that data is being collected from the teams that are actually on the ground working, you know, and have that built into the systematic approach of how one is running that project. Because if you don't collect data on that week 1, you have lost that data. You can't, you know, to go back, you know, everyone is starting to work in real time at such pace, you know, but then again, you don't want to be in the position of the police, for example, who have got amazing, massive amounts of data, but they can't process it efficiently enough for it to actually matter on the front line and deliver the justice needed by victims. at the moment. But, you know, it's all to do with matching what you're trying to achieve with the strategy and being able to deliver that. And maybe this isn't just it's not going to be a big bang. This is continuous improvement / performance evolution. I'm going to keep repeating it, but we're learning as we go. Nobody is an expert in this. And I'm sorry, not even the big boys in Silicon Valley are. Not even the Facebook guy. He's just you see his face when he's had a data stitch up. He is in absolute virgin snow panic territory, and nobody on the planet can help him because he's got himself into that place, right? Or his company. But you know, that's what I'm talking about. We are in new territory, and if this hasn't been done for pharmaceutical industry before, then you know you've got to go through a risk-based process, which you know will lead to success. A big bang with people who don't know what they're doing is very risky. I've seen it before on other projects. Could we go to tip 10, please? Right, so this is the success criteria. So you've got a project, okay, and you've identified along the way that you are going to collect data along it, and then from that data can then be used or transferred to other projects or be sold to companies, what have you. You know, having that strategy, and you know, if you end a project having had a data strategy and you've ended up with absolutely nothing at the end of it, maybe that wasn't a particularly successful project from the data point of view, but you got your product to market, so it was a successful project. But my point being is you know, one needs to lay out the success criteria for the gateways of what a good data strategy would look like for a project, for the organization, for the industry. So with governments, you know, they've got a national data strategy from DCMS, and that's been an interesting one to watch for me, because you know what's important to them as a data strategy. You know, I've identified for me areas that I'm quite surprised from a government point of view. They haven't included certain parts of data that I would have thought would be important to public. But, you know, that's to do with consultation, which they had, you know, that it's been well led and very engaged into the technology market. But it's not just about technology, it's about frontline public service. But my point being is, transfer that knowledge, what's been going on for big national data strategies, for say international data strategy for pharmaceuticals, and what is the purpose of that? What are the major benefits of that? What are you trying to achieve? That could return fantastic results if the right technologies are being developed, the right you know, investments are being made, the right risk management systems are in place to do this. Yeah, and there's an appetite for this evolution. I think that's about it for the moment, because we don't want to eat into workshop time. That's just the tips all on a slide. I think I think we're going into like where I might have forgotten to edit some of the slides, so that's fine. But I've got a team just out of interest, but I won't, you know, you'll have this on your deck. But the guys that I work with and who I'm learning from, you know, it's really important. This is now really listening to skills of other industries and identifying who are the real experts and who are the ones that are trying to have a punt. And yeah, it's complex. So what would we like to do now? Some questions?
Yes, please. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Sophie. Really interesting presentation. We've got some time, obviously, before we move over to the breakout rooms. Have we got any questions at this stage that anyone wants to put to Sophie? Just having a quick look in the chat. Obviously, you can use the chat function if you wish.
I'll put my hand up, Sophie. Can I just ask you about, is there any particular technology you think would be good to know about as you think about this? Is there some early things we should be researching in terms of technology, or is it just looking at our own roles and what we need to do?
I think what I would say, Jeanette, and I think I've got to be, I don't want to be seen as salesy, because it's really difficult. I sit in a really odd place these days, but the consultation or the professional support to help you identify your role and the types of jobs and the project challenges and the goal that you have, to break that down, it has to be the starting point. Because what the mistake is people go out because they like the technology or they like the provider. They've totally forgotten what the point of that, what the investment is about them and improving them and their performance, or achieving the goal of, you know, waste reduction or what have you. It's a business case is the point that has to be drafted, because you're not going to know, and it's like anything, you can't start something unless you know exactly what it is you're getting into as much as possible. And with technology, what I've seen quite many times, government keeps going in for a big all-in project to, oh my gosh, let's disaggregate and never do that again, to let's go all in again. The point is you need to know the scope, what it is you're buying, what does good look like for it to get that success, and how much is it going to cost. You know, and forget about the big names, the technology people, the nice guy with the shiny teeth. You know, it's about what's going to make you deliver your job better, and that's communication.
Thank you. Since there's no messages in the chat, I'm not sure if the chat's working or not, so I'll just ask another question if you don't mind. So in pharma, there's multiple stakeholders. So there's usually your line and your line management, and then there's your project team, which could be international. And then there's also the strategic leadership team and the portfolio leaders and controllers. So there's multiple stakeholders to engage, probably in your industry as well, but multiple stakeholders to engage in order to go for some sort of digital transformation. And I understand that we need to have a business case, think about our roles, then develop a business case, and that's great. But before we put a lot of time into that, you want to get some idea that actually this is going to be even an opportunity at all. Yep. So do you have any sort of recommendations on how to start that process?
I mean, as I said, this has been a long, difficult and challenging journey for me. This is not easy, and this is because it's new. Yeah, if it was well trodden and early adoption stage had already happened, we're in easy territory. And I'm getting the impression that you guys are at the beginning of this journey, which is fantastic. And I know the APM have been keen to obviously drive the future of project management for a good couple of years now around data, which is amazing. So, you know, this is getting there. So for me, it's all about vision, right? And, you know, these executive summaries where you need to say what you want or what the vision is in 3 words. And yes, I took this slogan for Innovate Law, but I literally have the idea that this is performance evolution, okay? The only way my performance as a professional using the latest emerging technology is going to happen is if we have a roadmap that's properly got the attention of either the business technology department or the profession that I'm in, if that makes sense. It's a collective, it has to be, but it's going to have to be led by people who are brave and people who are prepared to take the risk because it's going to be worth it.
Yeah, thanks. I think we're quite short on time. So, somebody put their hand up. Who's that? Let's see. Great, Ashok, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, just a really quick question. What we tend to do is we do try to automate everything that we do. I mean, that's the key thing in most of the project managers' portfolio, because if we didn't, we wouldn't have time to do it, basically. Yeah. So we try to automate everything. But my problem tends to be is finding one source of truth, because we find lots of data, and it's sifting through to understand which is the right data to follow. And my question is, how do you, as someone that's explored this area, know what is the right data? I mean, what I tend to do is I see what the common trends are and think that's the right data. That's what I'm going to go with. It's almost consensus view of the data rather than understanding truly, is that the right data? That's my question, really.
Wow, I mean, data, you know, it's just a massive, what we're talking about here is going to be not specific, but you know, when I've actually sort of had to deal with like real big volumes of data, and a lot of that was sort of to do with sort of censorship before it got shared or packaged to go elsewhere. You know, there's so much sensitivity around data. You know, and again, I think you're identifying a bucket of skills that need, you know, if we don't have the answers for that question in this forum, you know, there are data analysts, business data analysts, there are skills out there that, you know, maybe we need to start thinking need to be built more into the project. So when I've worked on big data type procurements, such as gambling, for example, like, you know, we've got a whole team of data specialists that understand how to categorize it, filter it, interpret it, package it, you know, and for a role that hasn't got time to do that, or is kind of taking a unilateral view, or as you say, through consensus, but how do we know that that was the right determination? I'll be honest, that to me sounds a bit risky. Like maybe you've identified an area of this really does, the whole thing around data needs to be looked at with a different lens. Project management certainly want to play a big part in that, and identify what the role of the project manager is in that big data lake type environment. You know, the idea of collecting the satellite data from you know, from space with the Met Office. I mean, those people are scientists with that data. You know, it has to be managed in a professional, commercial, secure. You know, there's a lot to this than just someone making a decision and guessing. This is really, really important. And if this is becoming a new part of the project manager's skill, then how is that industry, how is that project management profession dealing with that new demand? Does that make sense? Because it's the same with law. Yeah. It's the same with us. You know, this is new. I didn't learn this in my training. This is coming in at big project level now.
Thank you very much. Just one more thing. I think the comments section is not working. But otherwise, you'd have loads of questions.
Oh, well, let's capture them somehow.
Pretty shy.
I know,
thank you very much.
But we've got a workshop next, and I think it would be good to go to that. And then perhaps we can, any questions, outstanding questions from the workshop, just put on the post-it notes in the workshop, and then we can raise them and have a follow-up discussion about all the opportunities and questions and discussion points that are raised.
Welcome back, everybody. I think there's a few in the lobby, but there we go. The power of technology. Everyone just suddenly goes off into the ether and then comes back. So good to have you back. For those of you who've obviously stayed with us. So hopefully that breakout session was interesting, and appreciate it was slightly shortened. But I was wondering if any of the facilitators from PIPMD maybe have some feedback that they may want to share with us.
Because we were expecting to not have much time, we weren't going to do the more usual feedback that we usually do, summarising key points. which is why we use the Jamboard to try and capture key points on the Jamboard, which we can share with people. It was a bit shorter conversation than usual as well. So just before people start dropping off, we would really like to continue the conversation in the future. So if people are interested in being involved in developing these ideas, then please get in touch so that we can pull together a group. So I'd like to sort of say that before everybody disappears. Just get in touch with us and let's form a group and discuss these ideas further. But meanwhile, I shall look at the Jamboard and perhaps raise a few points that I can see in the conversations that were had. So in one of the workshops about pharma and life sciences, what is needed to move from metrics typically connected now around a project to metrics, other measures that could be used to assess the effectiveness of project management. So collected now is project cycle by times and phase. Am I still in the meeting? And project KPIs, they're specific to project, and things like project cost versus variance. But really that needs to be changed so that you're collecting data that's universal to all projects, that you can analyse projects across the portfolio. And you really want to be able to access real-time data very easily and not this never-ending gathering data put into portfolio, PowerPoints, etc. But you need an agreed list of definitions that you can actually compare like with like. And then let's go to another page. A lot of discussion in one of the groups. I think there's some ideas about what's difficult to measure. How do we measure things? It's very difficult to do this quickly, I have to say. What's not collected yet, and which would be good, would be comparing projects. So collect data that's to identify how projects differ, and that you need a platform so that you can collect the same data across projects. And you also want very much customer-centric design. At the moment, everything is sort of very much tracking of budgets and times and the cost of those delays if it's always time is extended, etc. Am I still in the meeting? Yeah. I wonder, Rafa, I'm putting you on the spot here, and I hope you don't mind. Was there anything that you would like to raise from the discussion that you think was
I think important? One thing that was raised was how difficult sometimes it is even to find the information and to find this place of where the truth is. So, and how another things that would be important is to learn for past experience, and maybe a metrics could be something to do with the lessons that everybody has learned and has used at the beginning of a project, for example, as effectiveness of the project management process in the organization per se. These were a couple of things that I thought were interesting.
And the other meeting rooms that I wasn't part of, is there any points that I particularly want to raise that would be useful to share amongst the meeting? Sandra or Julie?
Actually, I was in the same meeting room as Rafaela. So.
Julie?
Hi, Jeanette. We our very small but select group had a really good discussion. I think what I really liked Sophie's framing around what Pharma PM's technology roadmap would be. I think that's a really good way of sort of framing it, the way she framed, within her line of business. So, and we had a lot of talk about information management, and Sophie's point about the fact that you really need to pin down what you need, do that sort of business case and what your real pain points and your requirements are. And we talked in our group a lot about our question was around, what do we report at the moment and what, could we report in the future? And a lot came back to information management, and also what Raffaella said about, real-time capturing information, synthesizing information from projects, having a single source of truth, all these things that we all would love to have, but we often go into organizations where data is already siloed in different places. There is lots of data, but finding sort of technology solutions to bring all that data together and be able to have a single source of truth in real time, I think is everyone's ambition. And I think as PMs, finding technologies that would help us, to be able to sort of, implement that type of information management sort of integrated solution would be really great, because it would solve a lot of the problems we have, and also allow us to actually start to look at new metrics as well. And as Sophie says, the data's, a lot of organizations have huge amounts of data, but it's actually wrangling that data and having it in, having systems that can wrangle it for you and automate it. I'd love to be able to collate lessons learned, for instance. I think that's information about project management effectiveness and how we use lessons learned across projects would be really useful. So if we could keep that Jam board open for a bit longer, I think that would be great as well. So I think it, if people could continue to put their thoughts in for a little bit longer.
That would be great. And if you wanted to make any comments, if you wanted to add, you might not want to, but an email address, or I'll add my email address on there, and then you can contact me if you wanted to get involved in perhaps creating some sort of white paper or business case, some examples of business cases. I'm not quite sure yet, but I think we need to develop these ideas, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Sophie. That was very insightful and has led to a lot of thoughts. Thank you. Has anybody got any more questions or comments before we wrap up? Raise your hand, I think, because the comments aren't working. Okay. So I think that I'll hand over to Gavin for a final wrap up. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jeanette. And obviously, thank you, Sophie. So yeah, really, it just leaves us to say a massive thank you to everyone for joining us today. It's been a really interesting session, and there's a couple of things that we've got on the horizon. As I said in the intro, there's going to be a lot of work that we're doing with PIPMD and colleagues around developing project management and really awareness in the sector. So do watch this space. Post event, we will aim to get out a survey monkey. I can't even say here. A survey monkey survey. Still don't think I said it properly, but it will literally take 2 minutes to complete. And it's really, we'd really appreciate your feedback, not just on today's event, but on future activity, really, to help us shape what activity you'd like to see in this particular area. There's an article that I published recently, just light touch, really, just to dip our toe in the water. If you've got, it's about a 2-3 minute read, if that, but it's the first in a series of articles about raising awareness in the sector. So do connect with any of us on this session today. It would be great to connect, obviously build those long-term relationships and just share your input, really. I know Jeanette mentioned a white paper a moment ago. In our preparation for this, Sophie was talking about a white paper. And Sophie, is that something you want to share a few words with at this moment in time, or am I putting the spotlight on you unfairly?
No, this is something I think that has to be done, and I think it's as I said, we can all go off and do our own little thing, but the power is in coming together. And what I've done in legal is not normal, quite frankly, and what I'm seeing in legal, I feel like I'm working better with the project management industry just by being asked to do this. I haven't been approached by legal colleagues to do this, quite frankly, and I don't mean that rudely. It's just we're in it's very difficult times. It's different times, and people are moving at different paces with technology, and you know, we're competitors at the end of the day, and if you're in the market, and it's just very sensitive. But I do think there is an open conversation to be had, and I think a white paper would be a fantastic opportunity to bring out just some of the things that don't need to be secret. You know, this is what we've spoken about today. It sounds quite basic, but actually if we don't get these tips right, then forget about everything else, you know, and people are running for this dream of unicorn. Like I said, in some professions that want to digitize, a great idea, but from my experience, that's not necessarily the best way to go forward. Coming together, writing something like this, the collective thinking, that's where the power is. And if we can, if I can work with the project management industry on this, this would be fantastic. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we're really committed to keeping that momentum up. Fantastic. Thank you. So I think really it just leads me to say a huge thank you to obviously Sophie, Innovate Law, PIPMD, and all of our delegates who joined us today. I know there's been some delegates joining us from all over the world. So huge thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day. All the best. Cheers.
Thank you, Gavin.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.